Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm David Elkins, the head of the comms team at Zoho Corporation, and this is Sridhar Vembu, the founder and CEO of Zoho. So Sridhar, one of the things that we get asked all the time is, how did Zoho transition from being a single person company run out of a small office to being the multinational SaaS company that we see today, competing against some of the largest competitors in the market?
So anytime you are bootstrapping, the way I see it is you have to start at year -5. That's a useful mental model to think about, because when you are starting at year 0, you have goals. But year -5, when you think that way, it gives you room to make mistakes, to learn, to even earn that little bit of capital that is necessary for the year 0 activities. As an example, I mean, one of the problems with any business is you have to do marketing, and marketing requires spending money. And when you're bootstrapping, the one thing you don't have is money. So that seems like an impossible conundrum. So you think of year -5 to year 0 as activities that perhaps make you money without having to spend much money.
Okay.
And then you get started.
So where do you go next? What was the inflection point to take us from that small business to where we are today?
Yeah. So having made maybe the -5 to 0, you made your mistakes, you've learned a little bit, maybe you have a little bit of money now. You've saved up through your efforts, various efforts. And then you have to now start to do this a little more systematically. And what it means is you have to think about, how do we attract new customers? Do they pay off long-term for us? What's the economics of this business? A lot of those questions come up. And in any business that I know of, particularly tech business, particularly subscription business, you have to spend some money in order to make money. It's always true. That's a truism. And so you have to now start thinking about, where do you spend, how do you spend, how much do you make out of it? Those are all the things that really determine the success of your business.
So in a subscription business like Zoho, what would you say the key metrics are that help you to govern whether or not you guys are heading in the right direction?
Take any subscription business. The critical 2 parameters that enter that are, what is the cost of your customer acquisition? How much money does it take to bring in that customer? And then, how much revenue can you expect from that customer over the lifetime of that customer? Preferably, we all like the customer to spend their entire life with us. But realistically, what is the lifetime of that customer? Let's say you spend $100 to acquire a customer, and you are going to charge them $10 a month. Then it takes you 10 months to break even on that customer. So that's the economics of the business.
So I think it sounds like a big part of making this math make sense is the lifetime value of the customer.
Yes.
How does something like a pricing plan play into that sort of strategy?
Pricing is always dependent on volume you expect from a given market. That's why if you look at something like email, that's priced much lower than, say, something like CRM. The reason is email practically everyone needs, while something like CRM fewer people need. So volumes really determine pricing. The more specialized your market segment is, generally the higher the unit prices will be. And that's just fundamental to it. And that also means more specialized the market segment, the more you can afford to acquire a particular customer. But here is where you can be creative. So you are in a very specialized market segment that only has, let's say, 500,000 customers worldwide, possible. 500,000 users, I mean, total market segment. Then you have to go where they are. That could mean maybe not internet marketing at all. That could be events. That could be various specialty things that those customers are there. So you have to think creatively on that too, how you acquire those customers.
What is your approach to customer retention for Zoho?
Ultimately, what we have found in terms of customer retention is the quality of your product offering, the quality of your support experience, and the nature of the competition, the competitive landscape, if you will. Finally, the health of the customers themselves. All of these impact the retention. I'll come to each of them. First, of course, the quality of your product offering. That just goes without saying. If your product is no good, you should not expect to retain customers. And almost as important, just as important is the whole support experience, all of that. We have found that the support investment we make, and in our company we don't outsource support, we take it all in-house, we have trained people and we invest in support. It makes a dramatic impact in terms of how long we retain customers. And the third variable is the competitive landscape. There are spaces where venture capital is flooded and there are hundreds of companies. In those segments, no matter how good you are, no matter how hard you work, your retention is going to be lower because everyone is trying very hard to poach your customers, and people keep poaching customers from each other. Then the fourth is the health of the customers themselves. And we have had experience in that, where you are in market segments where, for example, if I am serving a lot of VC funded companies and a downturn or something arrives and the venture capital dries up, a lot of these companies run out of money. No matter how good our offering is, no matter how good our support is, we still end up losing customers because we end up losing them completely. So those are all the variables that you have to be aware of in your business, the nature of all of these. So you have to be aware of even the nature of your customers. Are they going to be around long term? You have to think about this.
So we've talked about the customer acquisition metrics and the costs that come along with that. What are the financial metrics that you use to govern your business?
So you have the customer acquisition cost, you have the lifetime value, and that's related to the duration of the customer, which is directly related to your churn. That is, subscription business, we like to talk about recurring revenue. The churn tells you how recurring is the recurring revenue. I'll give you an example. This month, let's say $10,000 of revenue is due to be recurring, but let's say only 8,000 of them actually renew. Then you had 20% attrition. That's your churn. That's sky high attrition. Yep. And you don't want that, because at that kind of attrition, you are losing that half the customer in maybe 3 months. You're gone. So you really need to know the churn, and that directly impacts your lifetime and therefore the lifetime value, and therefore how much can you spend to acquire the customer, all of these. And the churn is dependent on your product quality, your support quality, and your competitive landscape, and the health of your customer, all of those. So you can see that all of these parameters are linked to each other. There's not like just one thing you can optimize, but all of them are holistic. You have to think holistically about all of these parameters together.
And do you think that the subscription model helps businesses stay agile in this kind of ever-increasing segmentation model?
The subscription model does impose a discipline on you, fundamental discipline. The discipline is you are only getting the money as you go. You don't get paid all the money upfront. In traditional lot of businesses, you go and ask the customer for lots of money upfront. And in subscription, you get the money only in chunks over time. That imposes a financial discipline on you. That means that you have to live within those constraints. And depending on the structure of your contracts, many times you may have, for example, monthly agreements. That means every month the customer has the option to leave. In some cases, you may have annual contracts, but every year that has to be renewed. That also imposes another kind of discipline, which is you have to keep the customer happy. So I look at all those as even good things for our business in a way, because it keeps us on our toes, keeps our game good, because sometimes you get sloppy in business. And it's in a way it can be good. So embrace the positive and build the business model around it.
So where do you see the future of the subscription business? Do you think it's only for SaaS products, or do you think other companies can switch over as well?
Actually, I look at subscription model as very broad now. In fact, it has always been there. Our newspaper was always under subscription, our telephone service, all of those. And the reality is today, more and more of these are going. For example, we have the pool businesses, pool cleaning businesses on subscription, the gardening services on subscription. And I am on a private water source. The water maintenance, the well guys are on subscription, annual contract. So I see this really spreading a lot. And as a customer, I mean, because I pay a lot of subscriptions myself, it gives predictability to my expenditures. That's something that I value. And for a business, it gives predictability to your revenue streams. So it actually matches both the customer need, that you don't have to lay out a whole bunch of capital or cash upfront. And from the business perspective, it gives you predictable revenue streams. So I see this as taking off. And now that we have the technologies to make this easy, from your phone, smartphone, you can manage this whole thing, and easy for customers, it's easy for the businesses. I do see this taking off in a big way.
So with so many businesses entering the subscription model in the coming years, what advice do you have for new business owners who want to set up under that program?
Some parts of it has always been there, traditional, so you have to know what's the upfront investment I need to get my service offering, subscription offering off the ground. Do I need to invest in R&D? Do I need to invest in infrastructure and facilities? And then, of course, do I need to invest in customer acquisition? And you want to minimize all of those, obviously, if you're a bootstrap business. So you have to think all those questions through. And in a lot of the traditional kinds of businesses, service offerings, one of the attractive things about them is you don't need a lot of cash upfront to get started. And you also want to rely on customer referrals. That's something we didn't talk about. That's very important, because one key customer acquisition channel is existing customers. They refer. And in fact, the last 3 of the subscriptions I have done, all I did because somebody referred them to me. So I became their customer because a friend or neighbor or someone told me, hey, these guys are good. So that is an important channel you want to be aware of. So make sure you delight your existing customers so that you get new referrals. So these are the things that I can offer as advice to any business, really.
Great. Would you say that there's a key to your success or a process that you've used that has allowed you to grow from that small company to the large company you are today?
I'd like to say every business is ultimately unique. Particularly, every very successful business is unique. You really cannot processize or create a formula or a recipe. People are always searching for this. The truth is, it doesn't exist. In fact, the very nature of a success of one business sometimes precludes another business doing the same thing. It's sort of, you cannot become a Microsoft by just doing the same things as Microsoft. You cannot be an Amazon by doing the same things as Amazon. You have to think different. And Microsoft and Amazon are very different businesses. So you really have to look at your unique situation and realize that there is no formula or recipe. And the one key variable that I have found is leadership. Ultimately, a very small, tiny business that seems to have no potential at all, they become a global conglomerate. While other businesses that seemingly with a lot of potential don't fulfill the potential, what does it come down to? People will say luck, but I say leadership. Because good leadership creates its own luck. That is the one thing that I would emphasize. There is no substitute for really good leadership. That's what I would find the one key variable for success.
This seems like a good place for us to stop. Thank you so much, Sridhar, for talking with us today, giving us all of the information that you've gathered over 20 years of experience in the SaaS industry. I know that anybody running a subscription business will gain a lot of information from this. So thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.